It's Paul Marsh, and I'm delighted and honoured to say that I'm talking to Dave Rowntree from Blur. Dave, how are you, sir?
Very, very good. Thank you. How are you?
Really, really good. Looking forward to talking to you. I should pre-warn you that I could probably talk to you for hours, but we don't have that. So we'll
Consider
try and
myself
squeeze like
warned.
yeah, well, we'll try and squeeze an hour's worth of questions down into 15 minutes or so if we can. You're coming to Portsmouth. I know you're doing a tour all over the place. You're coming to Portsmouth. You're coming to the Wedgwood Rooms on the 18th of March. Tell us a little bit about the tour and what you're touring and why.
I'm touring to talk about my new book called No One You Know, which is a book of photos I took in the very early days of the band, probably the first 3 or 4 years. Actually, started before we were even signed. So I took all these photos, lost them, and then found them again a few years ago, and was kind of blown away by the pictures I'd taken. So. Yeah, I've put them all in a book, which was released last year, and I'm doing a tour around the country, in fact, around the world, to promote the book and to answer people's questions about it.
Well, the book it looks absolutely unbelievable. I've seen a few bits and pieces online. When you look at the pictures now after all of these years, what really jumps out to you about the early days?
What jumps out is how much fun we were having, the joy we were taking in it, because the time I took these pictures was the time when we were experiencing being in a professional band for the first time, first time in a studio with Stephen Street, our kind of great producer friend, and then the first time out on tour around the world. So first tour of America, first tour of Japan, South America, Mexico, Europe, all of these things we were doing for the very first time, first tour bus. These are huge milestones for a band. And what I remember about it was very hard work. But what comes through in the pictures is how much fun we were all having, the kind of joy and pleasure we were taking in it all.
I'm assuming that all around sort of 92, 93 that time.
Well, the band, we usually say the band started in 1989, so probably starting in 1988,
Wow.
maybe in 1987. Hard to say, really. My memory about this is terrible, but yeah. And then for 5 years after that, maybe up to the touring of the first album, I guess.
So the thing is, at the time, you would have had no idea that you were capturing something so massively important. Like you say, it's just about the lads having fun.
Yep, there's a period at the beginning of a band where nobody's interested, as they weren't with us. We were a tiny little band playing what was then very unfashionable music, to be honest. And the indie music was so unfashionable, we had to have our own chart because it was so unlikely that we'd ever make the main chart. So nobody was taking pictures of us. It was just me. And I thought, well, if this is it, if this is all we get, one tour of America, one tour of Japan, then we get dropped by the label, I want to remember it all. So I took pictures of everything, all of the minutiae of being out on tour, all the things we did, dressing rooms, traveling, all of that kind of stuff I took pictures of. Didn't really take pictures of us on stage because, then I'd be working too. It'd be something else to do with my hands. So it's all the other stuff.
But the thing that I love, and you sort of allude to this there, the thing that I love about Blur is the fact that you literally didn't have success overnight. In fact, like you say, from those first couple of albums, although you had a couple of sort of minor hits, it wasn't until Parklife that everything absolutely exploded. So, what did it feel like inside the band for that gradual climb towards Parklife?
It felt very frustrating. We thought we were the greatest band in the world, and we couldn't believe that everybody else didn't feel the same way.
Well, I
Um,
mean, like you were right. It was true. Everybody else just had to catch up.
well, the music fashion was quite different when we were signed. They were
Yeah.
just coming out of the Manchester scene.
Yeah.
Then, as we released our first album, Nirvana released Nevermind, so that kind of took the heat out of English bands for a long time. So it wasn't until that, the that finished, and the bands that came in Nirvana's wake were nowhere near as good as Nirvana, and that all kind of fizzled out. And suddenly the music industry was looking for what's next, and there was us, and there was Oasis, and a few other bands all seemed to be doing something interesting, and so it seemed to me almost overnight the musical fashion changed. And suddenly we'd gone from a sort of marginal band to a mainstream band, and we were no longer in the indie charts, we're suddenly in the main charts. And yeah, that seemed to happen very quickly. The what was musical mainstream changed incredibly quickly, and suddenly, um, whereas we'd been watching other bands being pursued by the paparazzi and screaming girls, suddenly it was us. Very weird.
Was it as much fun? Because, like you say, you talk about Nirvana and obviously the Seattle sound and all of that, which was very serious, very dour at the time. And you were almost like the anti of that. Was it as much fun as it appeared to be from the outside looking in?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, being we suddenly were in the Beatles. I mean, what's not to like about that? It was absolutely great. I mean, from my perspective, it nearly drove Graham mad. But all of that kind of insanity, the kind of boy band sort of insanity, didn't last very long because we're not really that. That kind of thing wasn't really what we were doing. So the kind of screaming stuff kind of moved on to the next thing, and we were just left with this yeah, kind of really passionate fan base, really, which we've had ever since.
Did you have any idea when you were recording Parklife? Because, like you say, Modern Life and Leisure both sort of did well. Like you say, you had your core fans and everything else like that. You did well enough to tour and well enough to not get dropped, which might be a different thing these days. But then Parklife was just a phenomenon. And did you have any idea when you were recording that it was going to be what it was?
Well, I always think everything we've just recorded is the best thing in the entire world, and intensely frustrating that we're not sort of being given incredible plaudits for everything we've ever done. So, yeah, I certainly thought it was great. Um, um, Yeah, the getting 4 Brit Awards and the kind of success that came with that was one of the things that sort of launched us into the kind of bottom rung of the top ladder, if you will. I guess the other was the spat with Oasis. That was the thing that made us household names, really, and them. So those two things put together, yeah, they were the sort of the making of both bands, really.
It's funny, isn't it? I did something with Britpop the other day, and I sort of named my top five Britpop songs, and Parklife was my number one. I just thought it really encapsulated all of Britpop. But whilst Parklife took over Britain, and it created Britpop and everything else that happened in the 90s, and it was phenomenal. We have to talk about song two, the song that not only took over Britain, but literally took over the whole world. That opening drum fill is one of the most recognizable intros in rock. How did it all come together? Tell me, walk us through it.
There's not much to walk through, really. In the studio, you have to come up with something. You have to come up with it now, and it has to be good. That's the lot of a professional musician. We were working out this song. I had to come up with a intro for it, and it had to be good. So um, I knew what we were doing. I was thinking about it on the tube on the way into the studio, and I had several times in our career, I tried to put 2 drum kits together to make a more interesting, beefier sound, and it never worked. It always sounded less beefy because the kind of frequencies tend to cancel each other out rather than add. So 2 drum kits together, it's always sounded worse than 1 drum kit when I tried to do it. So on the way into the studio, I thought, well, why don't we set up these 2 drum kits opposite each other, and I'll play a fairly empty rhythm, and I get Graham, who's also a drummer, to play some sort of fill-in notes, so we're not both playing on the same beats. And so I went doink doink did a doink did a doink, and Graham went doo doo on the toms, and filled in filled in the notes between them. So that sounded great. So that was that really. Move on to the next thing.
Oh, I love it. Well, look, like I said to you, I like to make my own little top five list. I've come up with my top five drumming tracks for Blur, and I'd love to know if any of my top five are in your top five to play live. So, my top five, obviously, song two has to be in there. Pop scene, music is my radar. There's no other way, and Bank Holiday. My top five Blur drumming tracks. Are any of those in your top five?
Well, to be honest, I like the slower songs. I think that what Damon does best is write those kind of maudlin, melancholy, slower songs like Tender, and
Oh,
they're my favorites really, even though they're not. I'm not saying the drumming is particularly interesting or anything, but the best thing about being in a band is the whole sound, the music that we're making, rather than an opportunity for me to show off. So, I don't mind showing off, it has to be said, but they're my favourite moments on stage is when we're playing those slow songs towards the end of the set, and the audience is just kind of swept up in the emotion of it all, as are we on stage.
I suppose, obviously, being the drummer sitting at the back of the stage, you literally get to see the whole thing. And for songs like Tender, with the lighters as it was in the old days, but now the mobile phones and all of that, you get to see all of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we all do. Sat at the front, standing at the front, or sat at the back. But yeah, it's that was especially clear in when we played Wembley a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, because Wembley's actually quite a small venue. It's got 90,000 people in, but they're all pretty close together.
Mm.
The venue itself isn't much bigger than the football pitch it's built around, because the stands just go straight up, up into the air. So um, you can see, especially when you start the show, when it's still daylight, you can see everybody's face, 90,000 people's faces. You can see them smiling, chatting, dancing, laughing. It's a very, very intimate show, actually, despite the fact that it's a huge, great stadium. Very unlike most stadiums where you can't see anything at all.
Mm.
Sometimes can't you see the front row? Wembley, you can see literally the
Everything.
face of everybody, and it's absolutely magical.
That show at Wembley a couple of years ago, were you able to take it in? Obviously, when you played massive shows when you were younger, and I know what it's like to be young and be in these situations, and you don't really take it in. You get involved and you do your thing, but you're always looking forward. To obviously play Wembley at the stage you are now, was it just like, you took it in that little bit more?
I would definitely don't take it for granted, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we weren't entirely clear when we put Wembley on sale whether anyone was going to be interested, to be honest. It wasn't, the thing sold out in about 30 seconds, but we were worried nobody would buy any tickets at all. So, I mean, so we definitely don't take it for granted. That's absolutely true. And yeah, we never have really. But we weren't playing Wembley Stadium when we were in the 90s. We're a much bigger band now than we were then. And paradoxically, the less we do, the bigger we seem to get.
Yeah. Outside of Blur, obviously you've all had your own individual bits and pieces. Damon obviously with Gorillas, Graham's own solo projects. Alex has decided to go farming. You've
Yeah.
become a composer for film and TV. Is that always something that you wanted to pursue?
No, I fell into it. I fell into it about 10, 15 years ago. Yep. And so that's my day job these days. I've just finished the last episode of The Capture, which is on the
Yeah.
BBC at the moment. The first episode went out last night. And yeah, that's what keeps me off the streets. I've also got a solo career. I had my first solo album out a few years ago, and I'll be following that up hopefully this year, depending on film jobs. And I'm a flying instructor. I suppose they're the three things I do
Wow.
to sort of
Keep yourself
professionally.
busy.
Yes, yeah. I'll catch up on the sleep later. Another life.
Well, you also stepped into politics as well, which is not really the usual path for a rock drummer. What sort of got you into that?
Well, I've been a Labour Party member most of my life, but most of my adult life, but I'd never really turned up. I just one day decided that sitting on an armchair saying somebody should do something was no longer a kind of a tenable situation. The finger of the person who's supposed to be doing something kind of resolutely turned around and pointed at me. So I just started turning up to party events and kind of threw myself into it really. So yeah, I stood for election a few times, not in a seat I could win, but I'm not quite ready to be an MP just yet. It doesn't seem a particularly attractive job. But I did become a local councillor in Norwich, where I used to live, and that was very, very satisfying. Not the politics of it weren't particularly satisfying, but the knocking on people's doors, offering help, getting involved in people's lives, getting woven into the community, that was incredibly satisfying. That's probably something I would do again.
Well, I can't believe that we haven't run over and we've actually managed to stick to time. I did tell you that, I was very on point with these questions. Let's finish off. Let's get back to the start. When the fans come to these shows, they see the photos, they hear the stories. What do you want them to walk away understanding about Blur that they didn't understand before?
Well, I don't know. I just try and be entertaining, to be honest. It's not a lecture. I just try and tell them the rather irreverent and funny stories about how Blur started and how, my career started and some of the things that happened along the way. I just hope they'll come away having laughed for an hour and a half.
Well, look, Graham, sorry, Dave, sorry, that's because we
They
mentioned
will have
Graham,
laughed.
isn't it? Dave, thank you so much for talking to me. I really do appreciate it. Best of luck on your tour. I know, like you say, all over the UK, all over the world, but coming to the Portsmouth Wedgwood Rooms on the 18th of March. Grab your tickets now. Best of luck with everything, Dave.
Thank you.